Good afternoon. Today I have with me Tasha and Bashar from VIP.fund and edseed, and they both fulfill all of the possible roles that can be played at both of these initiatives. So Bashar is a volunteer and student, and Tash is also a mentor. We are very happy to have you today with us, Tash and Bashar. So to start off with, could you briefly introduce yourselves and your affiliation with VIP.fund and edseed, along with your responsibilities?
Yeah, my name is Bashar Alallawi. I'm an edseed students and VIP.fund fellow. I'm a Syrian refugee living in Erbil, Jordan. I'm 23 years old and I'm studying software engineering at Azarqa University. I have been volunteering with VIP.fund for 8 months. I coordinate events, support the tech department, and help in communications. The VIP.fund team offered me so much support and care, and I wanted to reciprocate the support by volunteering.
Hi, and I'm Tasha Toth. I'm based in New Jersey. I'm a Palestinian American. I've been with VIP.fund for the last 7 months. I started as a mentor and expanded my horizons to become a volunteer with the organization. I help in the content creation. I help with content creation, volunteer coordination, and communications. Once I learned about VIP.fund's mission to help conflict-impacted youth achieve their higher education, I was ecstatic. And given that I'm bilingual in English and Arabic, I thought this was the perfect opportunity for me to use my bilingual skills for a good cause.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for this very comprehensive overview, both of you. So my next question really relates to the first one. It's how did you come across edseed and VIP.fund? So how did you hear about them? And how did it feel using the platforms for the first time?
For me, my friend told me about edseed and encouraged me to reach out and create a campaign. The process was easy and the team was very helpful and supportive. The platform was easy to navigate.
For me, my friend Gail Vignola is a board member at VIP.fund, and her and I both volunteer with a New Jersey-based nonprofit that has a similar feel to it as VIP. And one day she was telling us about VIP.fund and edseed and what they do, and it piqued my interest. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna join. And here I am. That's what I've been doing. And in terms of the platforms, they're very easy to navigate. Like Bashar said, they're very user-friendly. They're foolproof, really. So it's been wonderful.
That's great to hear. My next question really relates to aspects of edseed and VIP.fund as a student. So in the role of student, how do you perceive edseed and VIP.fund? So are they really only funding platforms, or do they have a deeper and more comprehensive role, meaning, and significance?
While edseed's platform is to crowdfund for higher education, the organization as a whole is about more than that. They are community and a family for their students and volunteers. They offer students an array of programs to enhance their skills and tap into their full potential. For example, I have been fortunate to be sponsored by the Abdul Latif Al-Shaqaqi Fund. We meet on a monthly basis for 30 minutes. They are more than sponsors. They welcomed me into their family. They are always ready to help me.
That's great to hear. It's so encouraging that you're having a really uplifting experience, Bashar. So could you briefly tell us about the professional, technological, and social support aspects of these initiatives? How has the support varied during the COVID-19 pandemic? And this is for both of you, I guess.
So overall, the support given in the organization across all the programs of the VIP.fund are very are well equipped with high-grade technology, since it's a tech-focused organization, and it helps make the work more efficient and flow easier. Communication is always open and consistent across all channels, and that's to help keep everyone in the loop, and so everyone knows their responsibilities and their roles and what is expected of them. And given that VIP.fund is California-based, but works with students and volunteers from all around the world, the pandemic didn't really pose much of a communication issue for us, and Zoom has always been the platform of choice, a way to connect everyone in the organization, since we already had the global aspect.
Oh, that is great to hear. And I just want to circle back also to another question from a student perspective. So does the funding gathered cover the tuition costs only, or room and board and other expenses as well? And once you have the funding that is required, how do you receive it from the platform?
Bashar,
please, can you say again, because I didn't hear you.
Oh yeah, of course, no worries. So as a student, does the funding gathered cover the tuition costs only, or does it also cover, room and board or other expenses? And once you have the funding that is required, or once you reach, your target goal within a campaign, how do you receive that funding from the platform?
Okay, the funds gathered go towards tuition, books, and transportation to and from the university. Students can add donation packages to their campaigns to gather funds for specific needs, such as internet connection or room and board. The funds are directly transferred to the university. Students don't receive the money themselves. When a university refuses to receive stipend money, earmarked for students, VIP.fund has an understanding with nonprofits willing to be the recipient of the funds. At the receiving end in the country where the students is located, the nonprofit verifies that the money was spent in line with the donation packages, rent, lease, as a proof. Transportation, public transportation recipients. For transparency, students are required to download or supporting the documents on the platform.
It's really wonderful to see how different pieces connect to each other, and how much goes into really making all of this effort work together. That being said, what are, in your perspectives, the strength and areas of development within EdSeed and VIP.fund's peer-to-peer program specifically?
Tash, do you
Okay,
want?
I'll go first. I'll go there. From a volunteer's point of view, I think the peer-to-peer mentorship program is really wonderful for connecting with people in the Middle East. Personally, for me, since I'm based in New Jersey and the area that I'm in doesn't have a lot of Arabs in it, I don't get that familiar interaction with other Arabs, and don't get to practice my bilingual skills. So for me personally, it's been really rewarding and very fun. And so the peer-to-peer mentorship program has really brought a familiar interaction for me, a place where I can interact, a place where I can connect with people that have the same background and culture as me. It's also wonderful that I can make a direct and positive impact on someone's life. It's very humbling.
Yeah. For me, a strength of the peer-to-peer program is that it brings people from different backgrounds and cultures together to learn from each other through mentoring.
So what do you think makes this initiative, or both initiatives, so that it's unique and sustainable well into the future?
The initiatives are unique because they create a globalized community based on growth and cultural understanding from people from different backgrounds and cultural upbringings all around the world. The initiatives are also unique because they aren't widely offered in Arab countries. What also makes them sustainable is that they pair people based on shared interests, so that they can both grow and improve through their interactions. It's also heavily tech-based. The initiatives are heavily tech-based, therefore making it easier and more efficient and more sustainable in the long run.
On a more personal level, and from the different roles that you both play, do you have a favorite memory associated to either one of these initiatives?
Actually, it is hard to pick one, but I will share a memory I have with Rasha, our board member who works closely with edseed students. When I was creating my campaign, Rasha invested so much time into ensuring my campaign was perfect before I launched it. She spent many long hours and worked with me into the late hours of the evening to help me practice. Her attention and care made me feel so good. I will cherish this memory forever.
For me, it's actually been, so Bashar and I are new to our mentorship relationship. And so this was one of the bigger projects that we've been working on, trying to get ready for this, preparing for this interview. And so the process of preparing for the interview, between coming up with the answers, practicing our answers, typing them out, I learned a lot about the organization, about Bashar, and about myself, really. It's been wonderful having to reflect. This self-reflection has been wonderful. But I also learned a lot of new words. I was forced to look into what specific terms meant in Arabic so I can help relay them to Bashar. So it's just been such a special time for us. I've really grown from it. And I really do love that we got to work on this together. I think it was wonderful. So it's my favorite memory.
We're very happy we could be of help, and we're very happy that you agreed to this interview. So thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And it makes it all the more worthwhile, in my opinion, that it was able, to make you better understand each other and the initiatives that you are a part of. Does it feel different being a student and a volunteer or mentor?
As a student, I get a great amount of support. And as a volunteer, I get more guidance in the field of technology, and it helps me gain new experience. Whether I'm reaching out to the admin team as students or a volunteer, I always feel welcomed and excited for my role in the organization.
So Tash, you mentioned that you are Bashar's mentor. And I know that you also mentioned that this is a fairly new relationship in terms of mentorship. However, perhaps you could comment on the process to becoming and remaining a mentor, and if there are certain criteria to be observed, and whether you have to attend, for example, any specific training.
That's a wonderful question. So it is the process to becoming to applying as a mentor is easy. You put in an application, you get a form, and you fill out your interests, your hobbies, your experience, your educational background, and you give them your resume. All of this is so that they can create a profile, and then they can pair you with a mentee. Since the mentors and mentees are generally paired based on shared interests and common ground, so that interaction can be sustainable. As part of the becoming a mentor, we get trained on what kind of conversations to have with our mentees, how to start a conversation, how to help them set their goals, how to achieve any goals that they set, how to overcome obstacles, general communications, and things like that, so that we can be their support group. And then we are also told about what topics to avoid, or how to deal with touchy topics that might arise, or trauma and things like that, since refugees do tend to have some trauma. And so that's also very valuable and important to keep in mind when interacting with our mentees.
And do you receive any training on how to handle vicarious trauma?
That is a great question. So I did the initial line of training, and as you go on, you are always offered more trainings, and you're offered more help. And I think if I had gotten into that situation, I would have reached out. And I think since we haven't really touched on that topic yet, since I'm still really new to the mentoring part of it, so I haven't gotten to that part. But yes, all of these, any type of interactions you may have, or concerns or anything like that related to mentoring, there's always resources available, and there's always someone to talk to and people that are qualified to help you throughout the process. Mm-hmm. So yes, there are trainings. I just haven't gotten to those levels.
No worries. That's a great answer. And how many students do you mentor at a time? It could be either for you, or from your experience, or from your knowledge of other mentors and other students, maybe.
Personally, for me, I only mentor Bashar, and it's because I volunteer in the organization, and it's just easier for me to focus on just Bashar. But I do know that in the organization, you can take on more than one mentee. It's just a matter of your availability and bandwidth.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Stemming from that, what makes, in your opinion, a good mentor and mentee relationship? And Bashar, if you'd like, you can also comment on this. And what are the challenges to that mentorship?
Okay. In general, open communication and an open mind are key. For us, the shared love of literature has helped our relationship grow because we discuss an array of books and poetry we are both interested in.
In my opinion, in general, I think interests being aligned is very important, because if you can relate to one another, it'll help you both grow. As Bashar mentioned before, we both love literature, and so we both connect on that level. So we like to read a bunch of books, and it's really a process of mutual learning, because our sessions are half in Arabic, half in English, and that way we both learn from each other. So it's a mutual learning environment. I learn a bunch of different words in Arabic because I speak them in English, and he needs me to translate them for him, and vice versa. So I think just being open to each other and wanting to learn about each other and celebrating what each one of us brings to the table is important. In terms of challenges, I think if you omit the open communication and you omit the interest aligning, that would pose issues. Or if a lack of support could be an issue as well. But in terms of challenges for me and for Bashar and I, we actually haven't had any because we volunteered together before our mentorship began. So we had already interacted and spoken and built a little bit of a relationship and friendship through our interactions from before. And so for us, we've just had a mutual understanding and we just kicked it off. So we haven't had any challenges, knock on wood.
That's great, and we hope it continues to be that way. And it seems like you've been having a lot of fun and interesting language practices as well. The next question also relates to mentorship. From your perspective as a student receiving mentorship, so Bashar, or from your perspective as a mentor yourself, Tash, what are the aspects of the mentorship? So for example, does the mentorship revolve around the application process to universities and university life in the US? Or is it more around growing students' campaigns? It could also potentially be, you know, about preparing and delivering skill building workshops or helping the edseed outreach team, or any other aspect you'd like to touch upon.
So all of the sessions are unique to the mentorship relationship. So if you ask other people, they're going to tell you different answers based on the mentee's needs and needs and wants and goals that need to be set. For Bashar and I, we really focus on talking about culture, history, and literature. That's what our main focus is, with a focus also on really the literature and the culture and the history are all to help also with enhancing language skills and communication skills as well, as although they aren't direct, you know. So in a lot of our sessions, we talk about the cultural differences between Jordan and America, since I lived in both, and we just talk about how different things are in each country. I founded an organization a few years ago where I collect and donate kids' books to low-income schools in New Jersey. And so I have a love for literacy and spreading the love of literacy. So Bashar and I discuss a different book every week. We read a book and we discuss it. We've created something like a little book club, if you will, between the two of us. But the sessions are all free flowing. And for us personally, and I think for others, it's the whole idea about being a mentor is to support your mentee in any way they need. And so Bashar and I decide on what we're going to talk about next week in our session. And I go with his flow because I want to be there for whatever needs and goals he wants, because that's my job, is to support him throughout his whole journey.
That's great to hear. So if you were to think back to a couple of months ago when you started your mentor-mentee relationship, or when you started being a student through both of these initiatives or volunteers within it, how do you think you've changed since then between the person you were then and the person you've become? And how do you think maybe your relationship has also changed?
So for me as a mentor, like I said, we're still in the infancy of our mentorship, but I can already see gains in both of our like personal lives. Bashar's English has gotten better. He's gotten more open to talking to people, more confident, and I'm really hoping that he continues to flourish throughout our mentorship and then just, you know, flies away, just takes off. For me as a mentor, I've also learned a lot. So I speak Arabic, I'm fluent in it, but there's a lot, since I don't use it much except in the capacity of working with edseed and VIP, I don't have a very rich vocabulary, it seems, in certain aspects. So I've learned a lot. Personally, I've learned a lot, and it's also been a very humbling experience to work with people who have a different background, who have it different than we do in America. Like Christelle, you can maybe relate, it's different here than it is in other countries. And it's been very rewarding for me as a person. And I've seen myself, my empathy has grown, and I've just been more understanding of the global society that I'm in.
Is the mentor-mentee relationship maintained beyond the student's time at a university? And do you think it can evolve into a friendship, or is it strictly professional? And at the same time, maybe linking into the upcoming question, Tash, have you heard of any mentees who have gone on to become mentors themselves?
Sure. So I'll answer the first part and then I'll touch on the second part. So the peer-to-peer mentorship program began after lockdown in Zaatari refugee camp in Jordan as a response to the pandemic and a lack of accessibility to communication and the outside world. It's in its first year, so it's brand new. So far, mentees rotate at the request of mentors, and at times it's the other way around. We don't pose restrictions on how long, we don't pose restrictions as long as the rules of engagement and code of conduct are respected. And if we're being faithful to VIP's values, our relationship with the students don't end after their campaign life. It doesn't, we're there for more than the duration of their campaign life. It's really dependent upon the student and their mentor. But for me personally, I'd like to think that Bashar and I have really built a great foundation to continue our relationship and friendship after our mentorship relationship ends and after his campaign life as well. In terms of if any of my mentees or any mentees have become mentors themselves. So for me personally, no, since Bashar is still a mentee of mine, but I do see that Bashar can become a great mentor because he at times just feels like he's mentoring me. He's always supportive. He's asked me if I need help with my studies. He's been really wonderful. He really has the makings of a brilliant mentor. But there are people who have the dynamics within and the roles within the organization are always shifting. So for example, Aham Safaf was a mentor and he became a mentee. And we also have a student who was a volunteer. He helped with voiceovers. His name is Omar Qaziz. He helped with voiceovers campaign and was also a mentor. And now he is a mentee. And he's becoming he just became an edseed scholar trying to get his education so he comes study here. So he has a campaign going. And so the dynamics can always shift. They always change.
Yeah, as Tash said, if we are to be faithful to VIP Fund's values, our relationship with our students doesn't end with the campaign life. Our aim is to create a caring community that continues engagement if any from the parties choose well beyond the term students' time at university.
That is just so great to hear. And it's really interesting how the roles keep shifting based on different dynamics and different considerations. Moving on to the subsequent question, what tips do you have for students from displaced communities who want to go to college?
My tips are keep an open mind, practice English. It will open doors for the future. Read books about everything to improve your knowledge, transfer knowledge, sit and focus on your goals.
Tasha, would you like to add anything?
Sure. So tips for students from displaced communities. Like Bashar had said, those are all important things, but also to welcome advice, welcome mentorship, be open-minded to things that take chances, because unless you ask the question, the answer is always no. And no effort ever goes unnoticed. You never know what door you might knock on and might be the path to your future. So I think just being welcome to the universe, being welcoming in all different opportunities and just chasing any advice you get, just go after it.
Those are really amazing tips. Lastly, what recommendations do you have for members of the US University community? So these could be college students, university presidents, who want to help students in your position access or be successful in or beyond college, or simply feel more welcome. And we're asking this question really because our work is mostly targeted towards making universities more inclusive spaces for refugees and internally displaced persons.
Yeah, it's a great question. I wish more scholarships were available to refugee students and that education was more affordable for us. I also think inclusion, kindness, and understanding are key to feeling welcome as a refugee in the world.
I would also like to add that I think we need more F1 visas for students to come. I think more scholarships, like Bashar had mentioned, and to just make it easier for students to come into America to study. Based off of my personal experience, when I was applying to colleges, one of the essay questions that was frequently asked is, what can you bring to the plate? Basically, what can you bring to the community? What can you bring to the college? How can you enhance the experience? And I always drew upon my life in general, how I lived in a different country. I lived in Jordan for a while throughout my life, and I drew upon those, the cultural change, that cultural, like I've just had so much to bring to the table in language, in culture, in history, in religion, in living outside of the country really expands your brain and it makes you think in a different way. And I think that if more colleges and more scholarships were available to international students, we would see that the gains are great. International students enrich our colleges, they can globalize our communities on campus. And not to sound cliche, but an international student being given education here in America and given the resources that we have, the the vast amount of resources that we have in America, they could go on to become inventors. They can go on to become doctors. They can change the world. They can really propel our society forward if they're given the chance, but we're not giving them the chance. So I wish we could be more welcoming to them, because they can change the world if they're given the right tools.
I absolutely agree. And perhaps one last question, Tash. When you commit to becoming a mentor, is there a minimum duration or amount of time that you commit to being a mentor for? So do you commit, for example, to having one session per week for a total of a whole year, or, you know, something else in terms of that commitment?
So the mentorship program usually runs for 4 to 6 months is the usual time frame. And for Bashar and I, we do once a week, an hour, but we talk frequently, almost like every day. But it's not just about mentorship stuff. It's not just about, it's about also work and just talking and, you know, stuff like that. But every student is different. So they would have a different dynamic. So some people might want to do 2 times a week for 45 minutes each time. But Bashar and I have settled on once a week. We meet Fridays for an hour, and it's a great way to end my week and a great way to end his week. And it's just been wonderful. But they usually go from 4 to 6 months, and you could do once, twice, 3 times a week, whatever your mentee and mentor end up deciding on.
Okay, great. And just a follow-up question. I'm sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but once like the 4 to 6 months are up, let's say, for example, do you need to reapply like all over again to become a mentor again? Or do you just like renew the mentorship mentee kind of relationship if both the mentor and the mentee want that to continue on, or what happens?
This is a great question. I haven't gotten there quite yet. However, I do know that at the end of the 6 months, at that point, the idea is that you've given them all you can give, like in a great and effective way, so that you're not repeating anything. Also, I think it's to help the students also get a variety of insights and different experiences with different people. It's to move them along. And I think that's a wonderful thing. However, I do know that once our mentorship ends, you can tell them, you can express that you want to have a new mentee, and they'll go through your profile and they will pair you with someone else that can also be a good match for you. And it's an open communication type of thing. So if we don't click, if maybe I'm not getting out of it what I want, what she's not getting, or whoever your mentee isn't getting out of it. So they keep shaping until they get you to the right mentee that you want, because they want both parties to feel like they grew. So I know that you can just say, I want a new mentee, and they will pair you with someone.
Okay, final question, I promise.
You're fine, I don't mind, keep talking, it's okay.
Sorry,
I'm having fun.
This is just so interesting. And you know, when you're in an actual interview, you learn more information, and it kind of just spurs the conversation on. So after each like mentorship session, or maybe at the end of the 6 months, do you need to submit a report to, you know, management in the organization to kind of see what evolved, what happened, maybe some challenges, or there's no reporting throughout?
That is a great question. So we have to log our volunteer hours, of course. And once you log your volunteer hours, they want you to give an extensive explanation, or just a summary, like an extensive record of what you talked about, what things were discussed, insight, reflection. They want all of that, because they're not in the sessions with us. It's a one-on-one interaction, and they won't know what's going on unless we give them a window into our conversation. And so we talk about, we write out, like we talked about X, Y, and Z. And I also add, I see Bashar has gotten better in this, or I see maybe that I need to work on this. And it's also great for me to reflect as a mentor too, because we're not perfect, but sitting and thinking back always helps with trying to get things, you know, to grow. So yes, we do end up giving them a week by week report. And they also ask on the bottom if there's any support. Do you need anything? They check in all the time to see like, how's everything going? Is the match okay? It's very much so conducive to helping both parties succeed. They want you to both succeed. So at the end, they do know already what you're doing, but they do ask you to reflect and see how you felt at it. They ultimately want everyone to do what they want and be happy and grow in the process.
That makes a lot of sense. Sorry. And in case like the students are facing any difficulties, could be related to language or anything else, are they usually inclined to tell the students to kind of seek that help within the centers that you have inside of a university? Because like most universities tend to have like writing centers, public speaking centers, etc. Or is there like some help also provided through VIP Fund or edseed, you know, to overcome maybe academic challenges that you know of?
These are great questions. So we, as part of our mentorship, they always tell us that we have to help them come up with solutions to any obstacles they may face. And so if one of them is academic or, you know, language, we would always ask them what resources are available at school, try to take advantage of our resources that are available for you at school, at university. In terms of also the mentees are here, the mentors are here to help with anything that you might need help with: school, language, communication, all of these kinds of things. We're their resource here. But beyond us is also, there are webinars that help them work on learning how to communicate with other people. We have people who, the students write blogs, and those blogs are peer reviewed. We review them, we check them out, we help them with their research process. Everything is, we're always hands-on. VIP is very hands-on on trying to help their students succeed, and not just their studies, but in other aspects as well, because they want them to be ready for the world, basically, after their education. And so it's twofold. You help them reach their, help them take advantage of their resources in school, but also we also give them resources and make sure that if there is a student who needs extra help with something, we always try our best to find someone to help them with whatever avenue it is that they're struggling in.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for agreeing to being interviewed today and for all of your great answers, as well as for agreeing to be interviewed and to answer all of my additional questions. This was really wonderful.